Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the S.T.E.M Files on OMSTV. I'm your host, Tariq Muhammad, Chairman and Chief Science Officer of Original Man Scientific. I'm also the Interim Student Minister of Science and Technology for the Nation of Islam. I'm also joined by my co-host, Jabril.
What's up, everyone? Peace and blessings. Jabril Muhammad, a.k.a. Jabril Engineer, back at you again. I'm happy to be here. I'm also the Vice Chairman of Original Man Scientific, Budding Materials Engineer. Before we go any further, I got to have and highlight our social media. First, our website, www.oldmansci.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at oldmansci_. That's OMANSCI_. Also at Instagram at OMS_TV. Thank you so much. I'm happy. I'm excited to be on here with our esteemed brother. Everything. Let's get it started, family.
Wonderful. So this is actually another very special episode. Our guest tonight is also my mentor. I've grown to love him as not only a mentor, but as a brother. And he's done incredible things for the nation and will continue to do so. I would like to just bring him on without any further ado. Brother Dr. Akili Graham-Muhammad, who is a holistic family medicine practitioner based out of Houston, Texas. I'm going to let him take over. Welcome, sir.
Well, thank you, my brothers. I appreciate both of you, and thank you for the platform. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness there is no God but Allah. I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger. I'm always thankful to have a brother call me a mentor.
Yes, sir.
And I do believe all of us can learn from each other. So I'm just thankful that Allah has put me in a position where my experience and the things that I've tried to grow into are going to be helpful to other people. And that's the biggest benefit is all praise is due to Allah. So thank you, brothers, for having me on.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
You want me to talk about, let's get with it.
Awesome. So we're actually on the 30th day of Ramadan. So Eid Mubarak to everyone.
Yes, sir. Eid Kareem.
Right. And this day is very special in particular because it marks the day that the Quran was revealed. And it's very important that we understand why fasting is not only prescribed, but very pivotal in the success of anybody, to be honest with you. So just kind of coming from a fasting standpoint, then we'll go into some more personal things. What is fasting and why is it a necessity for someone who would like to gain complete control over their lives?
Yes, sir. Excellent question. I would say first, the purpose of fasting is to give the human body the ultimate aspect of rest. You know, when most people hear the word rest, they consider, you know, they've been on their feet all day, so they get home and they sit down, or at night when they lay in their bed and they're resting. That is an aspect of resting, but there also is that aspect in cells, in tissues of the body. And so I like to use the example of moving into a house, which I think will be relative to any and everybody that can understand where we're coming from. So let's say that we're moving into our house. We have a truck outside that has pulled up, an 18-wheeler, got all these boxes, all this stuff from the other house. And, you know, we have a house large enough where we have a couple of those trucks.
Okay.
So we have people moving these boxes. Am I still on?
Yes,
You're
sir.
still on.
You're
I
good.
think it seems to be kind of frozen, but I can still hear everyone.
Okay. So there are people moving these boxes from the trucks into the house. And let's say those of us who live in the house and the stuff is moving, we are not doing the work of moving all of these boxes. So we walk into the living room, there are boxes all over the living room. We walk into, let's say, the game room, there are boxes all over there. There are boxes in the garage, there are boxes in the kitchen. And we know that after these movers finish putting this stuff in the house, we're going to have to take these boxes, open them up, figure out exactly where everything goes, and put that where it needs to go. So
Right.
that is somewhat of an analogy that we can use for how the body works. The body is going to digest food, which takes a lot of work. So let's just assume that these men moved out of your old house, put all these boxes in this truck, and then had to drive all the way, let's say, from New York to California. So all that work they had to do before they got to this house. And now these things are in the house and you have to open up these boxes and put them where they need to go. That's kind of an analogy of the work that it takes for the human body to take food, break it down, and then once we absorb it, that's the aspect of putting it from the truck into the house. And then the perspective of taking it out of the boxes and putting it where it needs to be is the work that happens after absorption. So just in talking like that, I think people see that when you start looking at how the body digests, it's a lot more work than we have ever probably considered.
Mm-hmm.
And the typical person, not only in America, well, I would say mostly in America, but a lot of other countries, the typical person is sitting down all day at a computer, at some type of just desk job, or just doing something that's not really physically demanding. And so when we look at the typical person, they are digesting as the hardest work that they do every day.
Right, right.
And so when we look at a cell and the way that it works, which we're not going to go in depth because we don't want to spend all the time on the intricacies, but just understand that when we look at a cell has to work just like we have to work if we are picking up or doing something physically laborious.
Mm-hmm.
A cell has to do that type of work too, to take nutrition, to make energy, to do all the things to protect the nucleus and all the DNA material. That's how we replicate ourselves. That's how we stay looking young. That's how we don't manifest disease processes. So all of that is a lot of work for a cell and all the trillions of cells that we have in this body. And so when you are not eating, when you are not digesting, when you are not absorbing, and when you are not placing all of these nutrients and all of these beautiful nutrients into the systems, then the body is really at rest like no other aspect of rest.
Mm. Mm. Now, I'm sorry, Jabril, you got something?
Just kind of continuing on that point, you know, sometimes we talk to people about fasting and people seem to think it's simply not eating. So could you kind of highlight the difference, if there is any, between a fast or fasting and simply not eating?
Yes, sir. I think that's a profound question there, because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad writes in How to Eat to Live, first of all, that he considers a fast,
yes,
no food, nothing that initiates the digestion process. During a fast, he allows, of course, water, and he suggested that we could drink tea or coffee as long as we're not putting so much sugar in there that, you know, we're trying to make up for so-called we're losing.
Right.
But he also mentions multiple times in How to Eat to Live about the aspect of your thoughts and having good thoughts. And, you know, when a person is in a grumble type, you know, aura, like, oh, damn, I got to do this fast. Oh, damn, you know, that's when you put the body in a negative from the perspective of what controls it. And I like to use the sun as a perspective. Just imagine one day we are trying to have sunshine. You know, I like to work out in the middle of the day when the sun is hot. I like to get out there and get my workout on, get my sweat, which is, to me, my natural sauna rather than going sitting in a sauna.
Right, right.
But imagine one day the sun says, you know what? I just don't feel like, you know, producing no heat today. We can't even imagine that reality.
Right.
Right.
But you could imagine that happening. All of the planets would slow down or stop moving.
Yep.
All life start to deteriorate immediately. And so that is another analogy of how we can associate the brain power on how it manifests itself in the rest of the body. So when a person has a negative thought, when a person goes into a situation with negativity on their mind or a negative perspective about this reality, and sometimes even ignorance can cause that, then you really are not getting the true benefits, because the cells are not being activated like they should be with the energy that comes from the sun physically and from the mind, which represents the sun from a physical perspective. So I think that's an astounding, wonderful question, bro, because most people don't think of that. And most people, even when they read How to Eat to Live, and he talks about good thoughts, we really don't sit and contemplate what that truly means. That means that prior to your fast, you had to think that the food that was going in you was good enough. You should have been able to sit down at your plate and say, okay, this broccoli is going to give me some vitamin B, the whole complex of vitamin B.
Right.
This broccoli is going to give me some fiber. This navy beans are going to give me all the amino acids to be able to repair anything that's wrong physically in my brain.
Right.
This raw milk is going to be able to give me so many antioxidants that are going to be able to decrease the aging process that's going on. See, if we sit at our plate and are able to educate ourselves to what we are putting in our body, then that fast becomes supreme, because you know what's happening when you are fasting. You're allowing all of this to get to work, and you're allowing your immune system to be boosted. You're allowing your body to go in and look at everything and everywhere and say, hey, that's not supposed to be here. That cell is not up to par. That cell is just a little too old. Let's get rid of that. Let's improve that. Let's repair this. And so when we are in the right frame of mind, the fast is superior than when we're, as you said, just not eating food. A person that's just not eating food can still wind up with diseases because their mind is not concentrated on the correct thoughts.
Now, just continuing on that point, if I may, Tariq.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
You talked about having good thoughts, thinking good thoughts. And I venture to say there are levels to food and eating and intake. We talk about physical food, mental and spiritual food as well. So when we go through Ramadan and we are forsaking the physical food, I venture to say we are intaking a mental and spiritual food in terms of that good book that we're told to read every day. How does the forsaking of the physical food allow us to absorb more readily that spiritual food from the Holy Quran, as well as other things we may take in to help stir and stimulate us mentally and spiritually?
Wow. Another profound question. Well, as we are taught by Minister Louis Farrakhan, the highest level of thinking and the highest level of conversation keeps the body on the highest level of vibrational sense. So when you're reading the Quran, reading one of the books that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad wrote, or the minister wrote, or the study guides, there is nothing that can be superior to that. Now, we could say that the Bible is included in that, yes, but there has to be a knowledge that puts the Bible in the right context. And so anybody that may not be part of the Nation of Islam, the next time you get a chance, you look at the back page of the Final Call, and it mentions what our perspective is of the Bible. Yes, we think the Bible is worth a lot and it has wonderful information in it, but we know it has been tampered with, and so it has to be reinterpreted so that we may read it and understand it correctly. So let's put that in context and say that a person has gotten that type of knowledge. Well, when you are reading the Bible, the Quran, and the other books that I mentioned, there is no vibrational sense that's higher than that. Now, what do we mean by a vibrational sense? Well, if you were able to look at any reality, and I mean from a brick to a piece of wood to a piece of food to water, everything that you would be able to look at under a microscope has a vibrational sense. And what does that mean? If you go to an elemental table, which I use a lot when I'm trying to explain things to people, and you have calcium on there and oxygen and hydrogen and silica and all these different things, you can look at that under a certain type of microscope, and all you really have are a lot of electrons and protons and neutrons working together and working around each other, and that's what produces all the physical reality that we see. So when I say vibrational sense, I'm talking about all the way down to that you cannot see, but I'm also talking about that vibrational sense that you feel if you walk into a room, and before you walked in there, everybody was talking about you in a negative way, and you walk in a room and you just you don't have to hear the words. You walk in a room and you feel that there was something wrong. Right. You walk in a room and sometimes it's not about you, but two people were having a disagreement, and you walk in this room and you feel that something was going on negative before you came in there. So understand, people, that there's a reality to when we talk about this vibrational sense. And then your pineal gland, which there's a lot of information out here on the internet that is somewhat arrogant, because some people like to talk about it as if they really understand it, but we mostly don't understand it. We have basic knowledge of it, but really the pineal gland is directly tied to the universe. So I'm talking about the sun, all the planets, and the creator that created all of that. Whatever you call them, whatever name, even if you don't believe in a particular God or a supreme being, whatever you think that was wise enough to produce 9 systems in this universe and then 9 systems in this body, and then 75% water in the human body and 75% water on the earth, that's not happenstance. That's something highly mathematical. Your pineal gland is tied to that. So when you're resting at night from a sleep perspective, your room should be dark, which greatly allows your pineal gland to produce the melatonin that causes you to sleep well. In the opposite perspective, when the sun starts, well, not when the sun comes up, when the earth is rotating and it looks like the sun is coming up, that is the activation of your pineal gland from the perspective of serotonin. That's the feel-good hormone.
Right.
And so these 2 hormones that rotate in the body, in the brain, and all throughout the body are part of that vibrational sense. And so to specifically answer your question, brother, if we are reading the Holy Quran, the word holy is attached to the Quran because it means that it's higher in a vibrational sense, in a sense of knowledge, in a sense of using that knowledge and getting understanding, that it's going to bring you to a more holy place. Right. And so when we read that Quran, that's putting your mind on the highest vibrational sense. And so if we take what I just said a few minutes ago, if you have put the best food in your body and now you're putting the best information in your mind, you are at the best that you could be at that particular state in time. So just imagine if during Ramadan we said to ourselves, no television, no crazy movies, no cursing, no interacting with people with negativity. Imagine that, and we're talking about the afterlife.
Yes, sir. You know, sometimes, you know, I even can say to myself that, you know, you're not as cognizant, or you're so much cognizant of the not eating and doing your best to pray, doing your best, or we can always do better to read. But those simple things like, I don't know, eating junk food, like even, like, you know what I'm saying, or, you know, watching those crazy movies, or, you know, talking about our low desires, you know, ever so like openly, like these things that help to kind of curb the benefit that we get. I kind of want to talk more, go back into that concept of just of the eating aspect. There's a lot of information and doctors and things that say different things as it pertains to eating. There's been a lot of research recently, or things coming out about intermittent fasting and everything, which we've known for like decades. But particularly when you have these people that talk about the eating of many meals and the jump starting of the metabolism and starvation mode and all these things, where do they come from? What is the rationale? Or like, where are people drawing, like, you know, eat 5 to 7 small meals and help you lose weight? Like, you know what I'm saying? In terms of like, kind of as a dichotomy to the eat 1 meal a day or the fasting concept.
Yes, sir. Well, the first thing that we have to take in consideration is that we are in a society that was made by the enemy of God. So,
yes, sir.
You know, when you start to understand that, and for those that are listening that don't understand that, just contemplate that after we finish this show and just think about what we have as a society. Look at how people die. Look at how people live. Look at the state of young people. Look at the state of the country, the world. All of this is obvious that those who lead the world aren't leading the world in a good way.
Right.
So I wanted to start there because the idea of 3 meals a day was never a scientific experiment. The idea of 3 meals a day was a meeting that happened amongst business people. The agriculture department and food corporations got together and decided that 3 meals a day was what was going to be pitched to the people. and they did a wonderful job of it, because look, it started, I believe, in about the 20s and the 30s when they started to process. And here it is that it's a generational ideology that it's a good thing to do is eat 3 meals a day. But like you said, brother, there is plenty research. And for those of you who have not heard of this, you can look up the word Methuselah mouse. Methuselah mouse is spelled like Methuselah in the Bible. You can look up the word intermittent fasting. You can look up the word calorie restriction, and all of these words will bring the type of articles where you will find article after article, probably hundreds of thousands or maybe even millions of articles on eating and how that is related to aging. And the science is saying, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad wrote in the 40s and the 50s and has been teaching since he was taught that in the 30s, that the less you eat, the more life you get. The less you eat, the greater your benefit is from a longevity perspective. Now, again, you asked the question, how did these people come up with these things that we're in starvation mode and we should eat 7 meals a day and food has to do with metabolism? It's all ignorance, because all of these statements have no scientific basis. You could go to the internet and find a lot of information on eating 5 meals a day, but you won't go, like I just finished mentioning, Methuselah mouse, calorie restriction, intermittent fasting. You will find many, many studies that back that information that we're saying eat 1 meal a day or eat 1 meal every other day, and that's beneficial to the body. When you start looking at people saying eat 5 meals a day or eat 7 meals a day or eat 3 meals a day, there is not a study, not one that you can find. Challenge me if you like to and come back and let me know when you find it. But I can pretty much promise you that you will not find a study that tells you that eating will give you good health, that eating will give you longevity. There are no studies that have ever said that. And so we're literally talking about people that hear things. And that's what's so beautiful about you all show, is that we say that Islam is mathematics and mathematics is Islam. Well, if that is true, then everything that comes out of our mouth, we should be able to go and prove it in a matter of time. We say in no limit of time. Well, that means that you set a time frame to say, okay, you eat 5 meals a day, you are fat and you look horrible. Now, why don't you try eating 1 meal a day and let's see what you look like in a month or 2 months. I know for a fact in myself and everybody else that I've given that challenge, they look wonderful in a couple of months when they decrease their meals. You see what I'm saying? So that's scientific proof. I don't need to go to Pfizer and have them do this randomized double-blind study to prove what God says. Right. That's for people that have connected to the enemy and put the enemy in a superior place. I've been taken away from that. What I can is look at when people come to me on 5 meals a day, when people come to me on 3 meals a day. And when I sit and I work with them for 6 months or work with them for a year, and we have pulled them away from some of that other philosophy and put them on this philosophy that's based on how to eat to live, I see nothing but benefits. I see nothing but improvement. I see people digressing in age. I see people curing medical problems. Yeah, a lot of people don't want anybody in the medical field to use that word, but I'm going to use it.
Go ahead.
I don't have a product to sell, and I don't have anything that the FDA or anybody else can come and say, well, what are you trying to sell, promising people they're going to cure? I'm promising that you go with God, you'll get cured. That's what I'm talking about.
That's right. That's right.
Put me in jail if you want to for that, but that's not going to stop this new information from changing people's lives. And that's the beauty of this show, bro. Beautiful question, but that's the beauty of this show, is that scientists need to hear this. Because if you're a physicist or you're an engineer or you're a chemist, you still have to eat.
Yep.
You still need to try to live, because whatever it is that you're a scientist for is because you want to see something different in the future. In the world that we live in now, those of us who are scientists need to live a long time because we got a lot to change.
That's right. That's right.
Question,
I'm sorry.
Did I answer the question?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Absolutely. Brother Tariq?
Absolutely. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, sir. You're good.
All right. So before we continue, I just want to let everyone know that if you want to ask a question or have something that you'd like to bring to the light in terms of fasting, feel free to put a message in the chat box. If you're on laptop or your desktop, is right there on the side, the right-hand side. And if you're on your phone, it's just right underneath the video. But my question is pertaining to a lot of the stigmas or the misconceptions as it relates to fasting. We spoke about a few earlier on in the show. What are some methods we can use, especially for the Black community? What are some methods we can use to promote or help the community engage more in terms of fasting or want to fast, period?
Yes, sir. I would say the most important way to get people to do something new is to be the example of why it's beneficial.
Right.
And so the minister says in one of the study guides, he says, you cannot change a people by talk, and you can't change a people by force.
Right.
You change people by being an example of what it is that you espouse. And so I think that's the first thing, bro. You know, when I do work in the community, the people are always talking about how we look so much younger than the other men our same age. And so that's something that they know automatically. They never see us drinking while we're sobering. They never see us eating while we're sobering.
Right.
And so that to me is one of the greatest things we can do, is be the example. Because I say all the time that in order to completely understand the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, whether we're going to directly to his books or whether we're going through and with the minister, you can't understand the teachings unless you're practicing how to eat to live to the degree that is really going to make you a conduit of change amongst our people.
Right.
Because the food, as our supreme wisdom tells us, is what our enemy used to start the process of turning us into slaves. That was the only food they gave us on the ships coming over here in the Middle Passage. They didn't choose that because it was cheap only. They did use it because it was cheap, but they also used it because it has the ability to dampen your mind. And so in 2018, if you are still trusting an enemy in the name of Kroger, or in the name of Piggly Wiggly, or in the name of Albertsons, or the name of Whole Foods, or the name of any of these other places, what's the one? Man, I can't even think of the name, but it's gonna come to me in a minute. But my point is that you are going in these places and you're thinking that you're getting the best of foods. Now, what you have to do is when you go in that store, you have to choose the best of foods, but that's still not the best of foods. The best of foods is what you are growing in your backyard. Oh, you mean you're not growing that in the backyard? Well, to get started growing some in your backyard. And then all of us that are doing that can start sharing what we have, because usually even if you plant 1, 2, or 3 things, you're going to get more than you can even eat. You'll have to.
Yeah.
Right.
And so when we are talking about the benefits of fasting and the benefits of the mind, we have to get to a point where we understand that we have to grow our own food, because pesticides, herbicides, and chemical fertilizers are in the food.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the biggest thing to me, bro, is that we have to understand that this information came from God. And, you know, a lot of people hear us say that, but they don't really understand truly what that means. It took me to be a registered member and a lot of study before I really understood what that means. But, you know, it's pretty profound to say that here it is, a man that did not even finish the 4th grade.
Right.
Was able to take a man from prison. And let's just get this straight. We can go to any prison in America right now and take 10, 20, 30 of the worst criminals from each of these jails, put them in the right environment, give them the ability to train themselves, and we train them and we educate them on high information like we just finished discussing, and you will look at men that would be untouchable in a positive way in whatever they put their minds to.
That's right.
So I wanted to say that first, because a lot of people act as if Malcolm X was something on his own. No, he was not something on his own.
That's right.
Because if he was something on his own, we would see examples of this in other realities from other people. There's something very specific about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and how Malcolm turned out how he did. Why you say that? because he also did it with Muhammad Ali. He also did it with Imam Wardeen Muhammad. He also did it with Naeem Akbar. He also did it with Minister Louis Farrakhan. The list could go on and on and on and on, because a lot of you don't even realize how many people out there that claim Islam that got what they got from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and then afterwards started going into the other things and associating themselves with other communities. There was no Muslim community in America other than what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad set up. All of you who talk about Noble Drew Ali, yes, he did do some things, but it was non-existent when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad started his work. The way that you see Islam affecting people in this country is from the teachings of Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and that can't be just blown away and pushed aside as some commonality, because there's nothing that compares to it in any society, anywhere that you study. And so I'm saying all that. I apologize for taking that long to come back to the
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Live, because the book How to Eat to Live is a new health paradigm. And unfortunately, the only way the people in the community are really going to understand the new paradigm is when those of us who say we believe are walking in the reality of it, and there's no excuse that they can make. So if you got a FOI that's fat, and he goes out in the community and the people are looking at a fat FOI, that allows them to make an excuse.
Yeah.
If you have an FOI that's fallen back into some old habits, that gives people the ability to make excuses. And I'm not trying to put anybody down that's fat in the FOI or somebody that's fallen back. I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. I'm just saying that all of us have to challenge ourselves to be that example every time we walk out of our door. I'm going to be the example of an FOI, of an MGT, of a Nation of Islam member, of a person that has supreme wisdom. What does that look like to an average person? And that's what each of us have to try to find within ourselves, self-improve, and go be that. And when the people start seeing us do that on a consistent basis, and the numbers start growing of who's doing that, they will not be able to even turn their attention to somewhere else.
Oh, yes, sir. Absolutely. One of the things I wanted to ask was as it relates to your patients. As we say at the beginning of the show, you're a holistic family medicine practitioner. How often are you able to incorporate fasting into your practice in dealing with your patients?
Actually, bro, I take that person by person. You know, if it's a person that comes to me and wants help with their health journey that's in the Nation of Islam, you know, I put that on them immediately. I mean, this is something that you already know about, so it's something that you have to challenge yourself to do on a short-term basis. But I also have some people who don't, you know, I shouldn't say agree, but they just don't know about the teachings of Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And so when you come to me for a medical problem, excuse me, I don't believe it's the right thing for me to do to start trying to teach you about the Nation of Islam. I'm supposed to try to help you on your health journey. And that is going to come through How to Eat to Live, whether I literally say that to them or not. But every person that I work with, fasting is part of their program. Sometimes it's a 6-month program. Sometimes it's a year out. But I evaluate each person, look at what it is that they have going on. Typically, the people that are coming to me with severe medical problems, they're so malnutritious. I usually say that from 6 months to a year, we need to concentrate on getting them nutrition based before, just like I finished saying, you know, if you go into a fast and you don't have the proper tools and the proper nutrients in the body in order to do the work that gets done during fasting, then you could potentially do yourself some harm. And so I want to make sure that the people that are coming to me, that what they present to me, I mean, it's no different than if somebody brought a plate to you and put it in front of you and it had nachos and, you know, some pork on it and some Doritos and some Cheetos. If somebody were to present that plate to me, I'm going to reject it, right?
Right.
And the reality is that when people come to me and I look at them from a perspective of looking at their eyes and looking at the way they move and looking at their blood work and looking at it, that's the same. They're presenting a plate to me. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
I'm looking at this person's condition and looking at this person's blood pressure and looking at this person's health history and looking at this person's ability to just sometimes just simply move around and move up and down stairs or just walk.
Right, right.
And I'm looking at that plate and I'm like, man, this person is in bad shape. And so it would be negative for me to start them on fasting at that place, because their body would literally be breaking itself down more. So they have to literally be on a nutrition program for a length of time. And of course, I'd be monitoring them during this time to see when they would be ready. But everybody is eventually going to do fasting because there's nothing that solves the body's problems better.
Jabril?
You know, I think it's so key when we talk about anything, how there are levels to it.
Yes, sir.
Because, you know, you talk about fasting, you have to meet people where they are. And
right.
Sometimes the things that are the best for you in general, it's like the Honorable Elijah Muhammad talked about us in America not being fit for self. I mentioned that on our last show, being that those ideal things sometimes are or require us to have a certain baseline of functionality as people. And when we're not at that baseline, particularly when we're lower, we need some of the things that may not be agreeable to that baseline to get us to that baseline. You see what I'm saying? So it's so important that we use the best of intelligence, that we do the things that allow us to get the level of confidence to fast, to get in the mindset, to the physical shape to be able to do that. And a lot of us, you know, we have medications that we may or may not be able to at that time to get off of. So I love when I hear a brother who's able to apply the teachings in a very effective way, knowing when or how to implement them to try his best to get you know, not only a point across, but get the patient or the person feeling better.
Well, the first thing I have to say is praise to Allah, bro, because
yes, sir.
I think I had that philosophy prior to getting into How to Eat to Live, but How to Eat to Live just took it to a whole nother level. And the things that you're saying are so key, because, you know, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad even does that with us.
Right.
He says, you know, eat 1 meal a day and nothing more. But then in multiple times in both books, he says, when you get to a place where you're doing that well, go to 1 meal every other day.
Right. Right.
Then when you do that, go to 1 meal every 3 days. So he's giving us the same reality.
Right.
And, you know, unfortunately, a lot of times, you know, and I have to say this, because a lot of times when I go on Facebook, bro, and some of these Instagram sites, I see people with the last name of Muhammad just beating people over the head.
Yes. Right.
And
right.
I'm sure that some of them are agents. I know some of them are government people. But for those who are not, we have to be very careful not to go out and do to people what the minister hasn't done to us.
Right.
I know I have not been in the minister's presence on a lot of occasions. I'm not in his circle or in the type of environment basis where I get to hear him on a regular basis. But what I hear from those people who are is that even when they mess up, and even when they mess up badly, he's going to take them, give them their correction, but then lift them with love.
Right. Right.
That's what you're talking about. You know what I mean? I can't treat the man who's homeless and talking to himself and not making any sense the same as I'm going to treat the man who's 20 pounds overweight, but he's a billionaire and tries to do the best he can to learn as much as he can. That's two different perspectives altogether right there. So is the woman that's 40 pounds, her dad and her brother, and was totally rejected by her own mother. You can't go at that woman the same way you do the person who went to medical school and understands the body and is overweight with ignorance. You see what I'm saying? It's two different realities. And so every person it makes sense to people that every person that walks into a doctor's office has to be treated differently. But for some reason, we don't think that same way with the teachings. It's the same way with the teachings.
Right.
The worst thing to do is throw stuff in people's face and try to pound people with what we know. the best thing to do is find out where a person is so that I can find out how to help you where you are and bring you up. That's the way the minister has given us the example of. I didn't get the example of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. My understanding is that's the way he did. What I'm saying is I didn't see that.
Right.
But I've seen the minister do that way. And I'm almost sure that if I was to do something ignorant, stupid, crazy, silly, and the minister was going to correct me, I know he would do it in a way that wouldn't make me want to leave the Nation of Islam and never want to see him again. And so that's how we have to take everything we do personally, over social media, and whatever we do as a career or a job or a passion. We have to treat people like we want to be treated.
That's right. Yes, sir. And just getting back into really quickly Ramadan. So Ramadan is, I guess, roughly, translated to intense heat, or the concept of intense heat. And when you think of an intense heat and that struggle, or really that process, can you speak to the concept of the heat of life and the purification process that trial brings to not only the believer, but one who's just striving to do his or her best in a world that's really contrary to those who are trying to do not only their best, but their best in that of good?
Yes, sir. What a question, my brother. Yes. Let me first say that again, we can go to each industry or each aspect of society within itself: education, government, money, economics, and we know that we're living in a world that's the antithesis of God. So I think everybody can agree to that. So the first thing that I will say is that most of us need to be humble enough to say, well, maybe I don't know the right way to God, or maybe I don't know everything when it comes to what I'm supposed to about God. And then to your question specifically, the human body is such a perfect reality. If we took care of it perfectly, we would see perfection. And the problem is that deep down inside of most of us, there is that subconscious pull to perfection. But a lot of the things that have happened to us over time has deterred us, taken us away, or it actually made us not even think that that's possible. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
So, but when it comes to the question that you asked, bro, we have so much ability in so many different ways that we are a prime example of what it says other than ourselves. If we really knew what being yourself would make you qualify for, then the respect, the responsibility level, and I'm talking about within ourselves, the respect that I would have for myself, the responsibility level that I would put on myself would be so great. And so when we're talking specifically about the type of knowledge that we put in our head, the type of food that we consider eating, you know what I mean? Because a lot of us in the fasting process, we get to the end of the day and we don't even realize that food addiction took over. You are literally, I mean, I'm watching some of the actions of believers, and I'm not trying to put anybody down. I'm talking to myself as well. We're literally like in an animalistic state towards this food, and we haven't even considered yet that hydration is more important than eating.
Teach.
Right? But if I sit and I present that to the average believer, and I don't care what aspect of Islam you're in, I'm talking about Arabs, Shiite, Sunni, whoever. If I present to you that hydration is more important than eating, I'm going to get a problem from 95% of people who claim to practice Islam. But there is, again, you have to go back to science. I mean, Islam is mathematics and mathematics is science. If the human body is going to have the capability that it has, there's scientific reasoning to that being a reality. And when we start looking at what is in society, and you go to a grocery store again, and you see people pull up to the counter, get ready to check out and pay, and the majority of what is in their basket is in a bag, a plastic wrapper, some type of can, some type of jar, some type of some type of package. Well, that person, not knowingly, has automatically put themselves in subjugation to something other than God just by the choices that you made. So it's a very difficult reality, again, to be able to present to people, because the subject matter that we're talking about is not something that I understood in a short period of time. It took me time to understand the congruence of reading good information, eating good food, having good thoughts, and then that manifesting into the reality that I'm looking at in the mirror. Those things are not disconnected. All of those things are 1000% connected. It's just that we haven't been taught enough truth coming from the creator, God, whatever you want to call him. We have not been taught enough truth for us to see the capability within ourselves. And a lot of times that is the reason that we see the type of activity that we can, because to a certain degree, people are frustrated. I know I should be able to accomplish this.
Right.
I know I can be better with this. I know I should be a better father. I know I can be a better husband. I know I can be a better wife. I know I should do better in this. And the only reason that you can't is because sometimes there's some things that are going on up in here that are stronger than what your will is to want to change. Did I answer the question?
Praise be to Allah. Yes, sir. Yes, you did. And you brought up so much in, the study guides and building the will and desire, feeding the will. And just on the comment of hydration being more important. If the body is 3/4 water and you have withheld or like forsaken for yourself water and drink, would it not make sense for you to put that back into your body? And then like also when you eat the food, it is that water present in the food that helps within the body anyway. And it's funny because you think about certain things like the throat. Your throat's been dry all day. So sometimes you eat certain things, they can cut the throat. You know what I'm saying? Kind of make things a little bit rough or whatever. So you have to wet the palate, as people say, as you say, in order to like make things more conducive going down. So,
couldn't have said it better myself.
That's where the I guess you want to say the non-think, but bro, I thought about it when you was talking about how believe me, I think about the iftar sometimes, man.
Yes, sir.
And like it's one thing to eat a lot at iftar, because what I'm saying, you're there and you're engaging, but it's another thing to be looking like you about to jump into the pan.
Yes, sir.
You know what I'm saying?
Knock people out the way, knock children down while you try to get over it.
Right.
Yes.
Praise be to Allah. But this has been so informative. Brother Tariq, did you have something?
Yeah, well, like every other show, it turns into me just listening. I love being quiet and just letting the guests kind of just take over,
right?
And just teach, be a teacher. Doc, what year did you graduate medical school?
December of 1995.
1995. Okay, so I just turned 1 year old. Just to let everybody know, Brother Akili does not look anything like he has shared with me in terms of his age. And that right there is a bear witness to what he has done with How to Eat to Live. But at what moment in your medical training, or just after medical school, at what moment did you realize How to Eat to Live was a better option than, not a better option, but a better method of getting someone healthy than traditional medicine?
Yes, sir. Well, there were two distinct moments in my career that produced that reality. One was in 2003. It was either 2003 or 2004. I was sitting talking to this lady, put all of her medications on the table, and she fell asleep while I was talking. And I got pretty upset at her. That's pretty irrational within itself for me to get upset, but that's the reality, is I got upset at her. And that night when I got home, How to Eat to Live was in my bookcase, but for some reason it was calling me that night. I started reading it and couldn't put it down. And in the first 30 pages, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad mentions curing diabetes, curing chronic medical problems, not having any medical problems at all, and being able to live this longevity. And I had never heard anybody make any claims like that in all the time I had been around medicine at that point, which had been, from college, medical school, and then my training. At that point, it had been, you know, about, I would say altogether, that probably was about 15 years of never hearing anybody talk about God, never hearing anybody talking about curing disease, not in the medical industry. And so that was the first, and almost immediately, and I shouldn't say almost immediately, the next day, I started practicing How to Eat to Live myself.
Wonderful.
And I started teaching my patients to do it, although I wasn't saying it in that format. I was putting plans together for them to do what was in How to Eat to Live without telling them. And then in 2009, one of my favorite cousins was dealing with her third bout of breast cancer. And she had chemotherapy and radiation the first time. The second time they did a mastectomy. Now that's before the protocols now. The protocols now, they just cut women's breasts off, which is a foolish man thought of idea.
Yes.
But anyway, she had both of her breasts removed, and then it came back a third time. And when she got to test the third time, it had already metastasized to a couple parts of her body. And she called me and she said, I want you to help me put together a program so that I can solve this problem, because I believe I can heal from this. I said, I do too. I said, but we're going to have to really deal with our family members. And so I put together the program for her. She agreed. And then I had a conference call with my family members, and I told them, hey, look, when a person that's in her state, which is a very desperate state, I don't want any of you to come offering her anything else. Let's let her build confidence in her program. Needless to say, and making a long story short, damn near everybody that was on that conference call offered my cousin something different than what we put in the program within the next couple of weeks after the thing. And so I was really kind of disenfranchised through that process with the chemotherapy and radiation. And that led me to do a lot of other research. And so in the advent of those two experiences, and then the wonderful results that I was getting personally from How to Eat to Live, the wonderful results that I was getting from my patients practicing How to Eat to Live, I just came to the conclusion that there was nothing better. I drove to California to my cousin's funeral. I drove back by myself because I wanted time to just contemplate, think, be by myself, process all these things I was going through. I got back to Houston, saw 17 patients in April of 2009, and I haven't prescribed a medication since then, because that day, as I was going through that day and dealing with the people in the way that I had been trained and the way that I had studied, I knew it wasn't right. I knew it wasn't what I needed to be involved with anymore. And so, you know, by the grace of Allah, everything about what I do was revolutionized from that period, from 2003, almost completely 180 turn in 2009, and I've never looked back.
You know, this is one of the reasons why I was so attracted to the way you practice medicine. How does it feel, just as a physician who's been trained the traditional way? How does it feel to be able to use How to Eat to Live to the point where you no longer need to prescribe medication to your patients? What kind of feeling or joy does that bring to you?
That's a beautiful question. It's a joy, a satisfaction, and a sense of accomplishment like nothing else. Because the first thing is that it's through this book that I came to an understanding of what the statement "from God in person" means. No, because it wasn't a lecture from the minister or something that I read from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, which I had read his books, and I had listened to a lot of lectures from the minister. That's not what made me understand what God is a man. What made me understand what God is a man was thinking about how many years I had been in school, how many years I studied hard, how many summers I spent in hospitals donating and volunteering my time, how much time I spent studying, reading books, studying all night long while everybody else was out partying, traveling, all this kind of stuff. And then to reach a place in my career where I was accomplishing all the goals I had set as a little 4, 5, 6, 7-year-old boy. I had my own practice. I finished medical school. I became a physician. I had a house. I had children. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Looking back, I'm saying all of these things about how long I was in school. And then I'm becoming a better man, a better physician, a much better physician because of this 2-part book called How to Eat to Live, 119 pages in one book, 191 pages in the second book. And this has totally revolutionized and made me a totally different person. I said, man, that information that's coming from that man is superior. And then it started to click. Well, if it's superior, where did it come from? And so, you know, it was a beautiful accomplishment to walk across that stage and achieve the goal of becoming a physician like I always wanted to be. But walking into the reality of practicing medicine and seeing that people weren't open to a thinking, question answering person like myself, because I just don't take stuff at face value. I'm going to ask questions, and I did that. And because I did that, a lot of people called me a troublemaker. And because I would think through my processes and make suggestions of how I wanted to do things with my patients, a lot of my superiors didn't appreciate me. And so, you know, walking across that stage and that great feeling of accomplishment, but then going into the reality of medicine and looking at all these negativities and looking at all of this pushback and all these obstacles that were set up for you when all you thought you were trying to do was do the best you can to help people, it made me realize, and it was a little bit of a deterioration of respect and admiration for the field anymore. And so at the time that I started reading How to Eat to Live, I literally was on the verge of getting out of medicine. All of my friends were making big money in real estate down here in Houston. So I was literally going to take the money I had. I was going to put it into, you know, buying a house and then start flipping houses. I'm glad I didn't, because I didn't realize that most of them were doing it illegal. And at that time in my life, I wasn't against doing illegal stuff either. So I'd probably be in the jail right now. But at the end of the day, I'm just so thankful that Allah blessed me and inspired me to read that book. And I literally don't believe that I could die anytime soon. I got to live to at least 250 to just show my appreciation to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Minister Farrakhan, and of course the Master Father Muhammad, because the peace and the tranquility in my life now is beyond measurement. I don't even know how to really explain it to you, but the statement that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad makes in How to Eat to Live, where he says, me and most of my followers are in the hereafter now because we don't desire for the necessities of life, like, you know, food, water, shelter, clothing. But then in the next paragraph, he said, and we also don't have a desire for all the negative, I'm paraphrasing now, for the negative and all the filth and the evil and indecency of this world. And so I'm just thankful that I'm in a place where I know that when somebody sits in front of me, I don't have to be an insecure person trying to help them, because that's what I was when I was practicing medicine from the traditional way. When I was writing prescriptions for people, I knew that that wasn't the solution. I knew that there was something else that I needed to be giving them, and I was trying, but until I read How to Eat to Live, I was failing miserably. And the reality is that even when I assessed myself and I called myself failing, I was miles above the average physician. So now I'm in a place where I don't fail. I cannot fail a patient when they come to me, because all I'm doing is giving you information that's coming through me as a vessel, but it came directly from God. So the only way that it can fail is if that person who comes and sits with me doesn't apply themselves, is not dedicated and not diligent enough in the program, because everybody that has been diligent and dedicated to the program that we sit down and agree to, they've all had wonderful and amazing results. Praise be to Allah.
Praise be to Allah. Yes, sir. Well, Doc, Brother Akili, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That time where we do break our fast for this last day of Ramadan.
Yes, sir.
What are some take-home things you want the audience to have as we conclude the show?
The first thing that I will say is that I am I'm immensely grateful to you brothers And I mean that sincerely, because as I told you last time, you know, I learned things from you as well. And, you know, this is a partnership and a brotherhood where I know we're going to do great things. But, you know, the questions that you brothers ask me, I don't sit and think about what I'm going to talk about when you guys bring me on the show. I pray and I ask Allah to use me in the best capability that I have to help whoever's listening and to answer your questions. And you brothers brought out of me tonight, I mean, sometimes I'm amazed at what comes out of my mouth as well.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It's not, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back. I believe that Allah is using me when I am attempting to do right, and be a vessel for people. And I just think the lectures, I'm sorry, the programs that I hear you brothers do, they're phenomenal. And you're doing a work that is proving that we have supreme wisdom. And that's what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Minister Farrakhan wanted us to do. Don't sit around and run your mouth. Go out and start doing some things. And so the interviews that you all are having, and the people that you're bringing on, and the perspective that the teachings are taking people and making them superior thinkers and superior doers based on his teachings, is what inspires me. You all inspire me. I'm thankful for the platform. I'm thankful for the opportunity. Through you all, I met Brother Victor Muhammad, and now we're going to start working together. And so it was you all that made that connection, because if I hadn't heard that lecture, if I hadn't heard that program, your interview with that brother, I would not have been connected with, you know, one of the few people who I think thinks in line with me when it comes to how to eat to live. Right. So, you know, my parting statement would be, subscribe to you all's channel, listen to your programs, study these brothers, look at these brothers, view these brothers, ponder on these brothers, contemplate on these brothers, because they're doing a wonderful work. And the reason why I'm saying the ponder, to contemplate, the you know, think about what these brothers are doing, because everybody that's listening, you have something that you have a capability to do as well.
That's right. That's right.
You know, if anybody's impressed from what they heard from me, I give that credit to Allah.
Yes, sir.
If anybody's impressed with these brothers, the credit goes to Allah.
That's right. That's right.
Have the will and the desire to be everything that you can be, and then Allah can use you. And so all of you that are listening, if you're inspired, if you heard information that inspires you, you know, find your passion and get to work on your passion. It starts small. You know, this show that you all are doing, I know at one point in the future, it's going to be a major network series.
Sure.
You know, because that's the desire, is to keep taking things better. I know that it's not too distant future, I'm going to have a healing center unlike anything else on the planet Earth.
That's right.
Yes, sir.
I know that. It's in my future. And so all of us should have aspirations like that, to take what Allah has benefited us with and try to do the best we can to help the world, because the world needs a whole heck of a lot of help. And so my lasting would say, for those of you who are interested in following me as well, I'm on YouTube as the Ultimate Wellness Group. I'm on Instagram as the Ultimate Wellness Group. I'm on Facebook as the Ultimate Wellness Group. And also my website is theultimatewellnessgroup.com. So if you just remember the Ultimate Wellness Group and just go look anywhere you can and try to find me, you'll find me.
That's right.
Wow. Bro?
You know, I think not so much for us, but what you just said, beloved, I can probably speak for both of us. It meant an awful lot.
Yes.
Because you don't see how critical we are of ourselves behind closed doors, and what we can be doing, and that we always can improve, and where we want to be, and you know, what are we missing. But to hear someone kind of really appreciate what we're striving to do, you know, by Allah's grace, is very much appreciated, sir. And may Allah bless us to continue to try to be utilized in the best of manners, using the best of intelligence, and trying to have clear motive as to not trying to get fame and fortune, but to really see a change in the mental state of our people first, and really society and the world. So definitely thank you for that. You know, I you're so sincere, and just, you know, sometimes just like, who are you even talking about? You know, it's like, you know, so it's like, you know, but thank you.
Well, this is
Definitely.
why I said that, brother. I want to be very clear. The reason why I said that is because I know I was locked on becoming a physician at you brother's age, and I wasn't going to let anything interfere with that.
Right.
The only thing that was going to interfere with that was my own stupidity.
Mm-hmm.
But when I see brothers like yourself speak, ask questions, interact, and produce a reality that I know is only because Allah is in you, then I know that you're going to inspire somebody. But you also have a greatness that you are in the process of achieving. So I'm really just giving credit where credit is due, because both of you have the opportunity to be a nigga
Right.
and a Negro and
Right.
a fool. And so that process that you go through, where you are, just as the study guide says, self-analysis, self-examination, and self-correction, that is what shows you that you're on the road to becoming a God. And each generation, if we don't improve each generation, then we're wasting our time. And so I am sincere in that, brother. I've been knowing Brother Tariq for years, but when I met you, the day we met, your aura was exactly what I thought it was.
Praise be to Allah.
Like when I first met Brother Tariq, his aura was that he was serious about what he was doing. He wasn't there to be on the Ministry of Health team because he wanted to get some special accolade or some gift or some pleasure that the average person couldn't get. He was serious. And that's why I'm giving you all your flowers while you live. Because if I don't make it past tomorrow, at least you brothers know. You know what I mean? And I think that's important, because whatever it takes to continue to inspire you brothers, if I'm part of that, good. But I see that it comes mostly from inside.
Yes, sir.
And that's how you know you're on the right path, because we shouldn't need a lot of inspiration. We should just need some more good food, some more good thoughts, so we can keep on this inspirational path.
Yes,
so again,
sir.
Thank you, brothers, for being who you are. This is a team that we're building.
So thank you so much.
Thank you. Absolutely. I second what Brother Jabril said as well. I thoroughly appreciate what was said in terms of what we're striving to accomplish. For one more time, for those who are listening, can you share your handles and how people can find out more about you and what you do?
Yes, sir. The website is theultimatewellnessgroup.com. Telephone number 832-429-4576. Again, that's 832-429-4576. I'm on Instagram as The Ultimate Wellness Group, on YouTube as The Ultimate Wellness Group, and Facebook as The Ultimate Wellness Group. And I want to be clear to everybody that there's not a problem that I know of that I don't believe I can help you with. And understand that there's a lot of information out there about so-called health this and this so-called health guru. But what you want is results. And if people are in another state or another country, this is how we could still make some things happen.
Right.
To understand that that's how I take care of my family, by what I do. And what I do is help people on their health journey in whatever manner that takes. So I'm saying that because, sometimes we try to take advantage of people.
Right.
And I want you all to know that this is my passion. This is what I do. This is what I love. And this is how I feed my family. So please don't call me thinking that, you can talk to me for 4 hours for free.
Right.
Right.
This is what I do. So, respect that. When you call me, if you're interested, let's work something out. Let's do something. And, I don't make any promises, but God does.
That's right. I like that.
Thank you to Allah. Well, once again, Doc, thank you for joining us tonight. Sun is going down, so I'm not going to hold anybody too much longer. This has been another edition of the S.T.E.M Files on OMSTV. Once again, we are no longer on Blog Talk Radio. And I repeat, we are no longer on Blog Talk Radio. But if you would like to hear the interview that Brother Akili did the last time he was on the STEM Files, which is on Blog Talk Radio, just visit www.blogtalkradio.com/OMS STEM Files. Once again, that's www.blogtalkradio.com/OMS STEM Files. Bro?
Yes, family. Another cracking open the STEM Files on OMSTV. We are your hosts, Tariq Cardiac and also Brilliant Engineer. Follow us Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at OMANSCI_. That's OMANSCI_, and our website at www.omansci.com. It's been wonderful. I learned a lot and looking forward to our next installment. Definitely stay tuned. Hit that like button and subscribe.
Awesome. And our next guest, for those who are watching, our next guest is a young SEO specialist. For those who are not familiar with SEO, that's pretty much just how you get found on Google and increase your marketing capability. So that'll actually be the business counterpart of the STEM Files. So I think he's about maybe 22, 23. So it's going to be refreshing to see his perspective and how to increase the level of attention that your business receives. So once again, this has been another edition of the STEM Files. I'm your host, Tariq Muhammad. Jabril, Doc, thank you so much again for joining us. Peace.
Peace, family.